As a funeral director, I've served thousands of families. So what I do notice whereby when the loved one actually shared the wishes and when the living that's left behind carry out the wishes, you can see that immense satisfaction and also, okay, I've done what my mama wants, I've done what my papa wants, and that truly is important for them.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Heng and this is the Money Talks podcast. Now, today's topic is something that not everyone is going to be comfortable with, but it is something that all of us will have to think about, and that's death. And with death comes funerals, and with funerals come costs. So today we are going to try and do a breakdown of how much it would cost to hold a funeral in Singapore, what we need to think about when planning a funeral. What should one know to help smoothen the process so that we can make it less painful than it already is. We have with us today Ang Ziqian. He is Vice President of the Association of Funeral Directors. He's also the Managing Director of Ang Ziqian Funeral Directors. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
So, planning a funeral, it's obviously a pretty painful process for many of us. So, when we are faced with the plan, with having to plan a funeral for our loved one, maybe can you tell us the top 3 things that we must consider?
There is a cliche saying that death and taxes are certain. And in my opinion, only 50% of this statement is true. Death is definitely certain, while taxes may not. Right? For some of us who have not crossed a certain threshold, that's 0% in terms of income tax. So when it comes to funeral planning, is that since it is certain, it's certain for everyone. It's certain for the educated, uneducated, the rich and the poor. So it always pays well if you plan early. And because when we plan early, it also helps in terms of our people that we love, people who love us, to move on from life as well. Because funeral is not only for the dead to transcend to the next world, it is also an opportunity to honor the person's life, and it's also for the living to grieve well as well. So it's extremely important. When it comes to pre-planning, what comes into people's mind, it's first of all, it's cost, which is very natural. But there is a lot more other than cost. So the most important is actually to have a conversation with our own self, our conversation with our loved ones, and a conversation with a professional funeral director. Through these conversations, we will then know what is needed, what is not needed, what is possible, what is not possible, and also to manage expectations as well.
So that conversation is the key to all of this, whether it's logistics, whether it's cost, whether it's funeral rites, right? So in your line of work, you've done this for many years. Ang Ziqian has been around for a long time also. What's the most surprising thing that you find out when people realize just how much a funeral costs?
We do have comments like, oh, is this how much is going to be cost? Because they were expecting much more.
Right.
And there were also families who say that, I didn't budget for this. I didn't realize that this is important as part of the planning. Can you walk us through again? So this is where, through a conversations with the families who are doing planning, it helps them to plan in advance. So we always say that you can go in 2 ways. One, to leave behind love, or leave behind burdens for the people who is still living.
What was the most, memorable funeral project that you've had to come across and, where cost wasn't an issue?
Where cost wasn't an issue. I did a case, and this was planning for a very long time. If I remember correctly, it's about 7 or 9 years.
So it was a 7-year funeral in the making.
In the making.
Right.
What happened here was that the sons, which is the children, all come together to say that if my loved one passed on, this is how I want to remember her. And that's how we start to do the planning, from the venue, from the flowers, from the music, from the rituals, from the logistics, from the signages, from the buses, catering, and all sorts. So it's like planning for a National Day parade, and we actually converted the entire open space into a air-conditioned area.
Right.
And even for the deployment of the toilets, it's in container toilets with air conditioning as well.
So no expense was spared for that one.
I would say that it's not so much about expenses high or low,
Right.
but more important is when we come to funeral, what is meaningful for the family, what is important for the family. So this is extremely important for the family, and we carry out as it is, because at the end of the day, a funeral helps the living to grieve well. And if this means a lot to them, we as funeral directors will fulfill them.
And I'm sure another challenge would be on the other end of the spectrum. Surely you can have a meaningful funeral on a much lower budget as well. Was there a case that stuck out to you in terms of, a very tight budget that you had to work with because someone was from a low-income family perhaps, or something like that?
So for the families we serve, we actually have very affordable prices to something very lavish. It all goes back to the needs.
Sure.
Some of which people may think, hey, this is a lower cost and all sorts, but to the family, it's very meaningful. So it's not about the cost that really matters, but what is really meaningful for the family and what helps them to remember of their loved ones. I think that is more meaningful. Sometimes it is also beyond cost as well. What really touches me is the family relationship with one another. That touches me a lot.
And that's priceless.
Exactly. I remember there was a situation whereby the granddaughter brought up the recipe of the grandma. And on the 2 nights before the funeral day, they came together, the granddaughters, the grandsons, give instructions to the auntie, uncles to mobilize them to make cookies based on grandma's recipe.
Wow.
And to distribute this on the funeral day. And to me, that's touching. There's nothing about the cost, but you can see that the family love. And as they distribute the cookies, in one of the eulogy given by the son say that this is my mother's recipe. Each time when he goes to London to work, he will bring a can. And he only allows himself to eat 1 cookie at a time per day. And that reminds him of his mom. And everyone has a different relationship through the cookies with Amma.
Yeah.
So I find it that's very meaningful.
Yeah, and that's the kind of legacy you want to leave behind. I understand that there are quite a number of funeral packages here in Singapore, depending on your religious rites required, etc. The cost can range anywhere from 4,000 to 11,000 and upwards. Maybe take us through briefly what people can expect from a basic tier, a mid-tier, and a premium package.
I think first of all is that to have that important conversations. There are many parts to a funeral, and that funeral will then, once you have sized them up, then you will know the cost. So for instance, venue is one of the largest component. The venue can be at the HDB multipurpose hall. It can also be at a landed property. It could also be at the open space, at an open field. And also it could be at a funeral service hall. And this then determines the size of people that you are expecting, because the larger the crowd that you're expecting that comes at any one point of time requires a larger venue, and the needs of the guests has also been taken care of. So that's one of them.
Okay.
The number 2 is when we come to planning, it's, for instance, your food catering. That's important. Number 3 here is the newspaper obituary.
Yes, so that is still a thing for us here in Singapore. How much do they cost nowadays?
It could cost as little as a few $1,000s
Okay.
to $30,000 to $40,000.
Wow.
Depending on the size of the newspaper obituaries, whether is there any color on it. If there's color, there's a color loading fee on it.
Speaking with your clients that do want to publish an obituary, why do they think that that's important to spend money on?
To some families, they felt that by doing this, they are able to inform their lost contact relatives. And to some families, no, I'm in business, I'm in grassroots, I'm in a community, I want everyone to know. And some is because the company wants to honor their founder, loved ones, or the founder, or the directors, important senior management people, and therefore they do. So different people have different reasons for doing so. There's no right or wrong. Is whether it is important for the family or not. So funeral cost typically comes out into 4 funnels. The first one is your funeral cost. The second is your post-funeral cost. The third is actually the F&B.
Okay.
And the last will be the newspaper obituaries.
So post-funeral costs, that's the one that caught my attention.
Yeah.
What goes into post-funeral costs?
So for some religions, after the cremation or even the burial, there are ritual services to be done. The second could be a resting place, which is, it could be a columbarium. it could be sea scattering, it could be inland ash scattering, it could be making into an Algo Danza memorial diamond. So these are post-funeral costs as well.
Have you received requests for ashes to be turned into a plant later on? I know that was a thing for a bit on the internet. Have you received such requests before?
It's not really possible, especially in Singapore. It's because there are rules and zonings that comes with it. Of course, it's a beautiful idea, but there are also companies who have done this to turn into the plant. They felt that they have also the second time grief when the plant dies. So it comes with pros and cons, and for anyone who wishes to do this option, they have to evaluate the pros, the cons, and everything.
Yeah, like you said, it's a nice idea on paper, but then there's the maintenance of the plant as well, right? That's a very fair point. So we've talked about where a lot of the money goes to when it comes to funeral expenses. I believe the shortest can be 3 days, and it can extend up to 7 days, if I'm not wrong. Because I come from a Muslim family, so it's all done within a day. So it's a very different experience for me. But when it comes to other families, particularly Chinese families, the wakes can go on for quite long. So what's the trend nowadays? Are people opting for shorter wakes because they cost less?
So when I first joined Ang Ziqian Mall in 1995, the trend is 7 days, 9 days, or 11 days. Today is 3, 5, and 7. The average week for a Chinese funeral is usually 5 days. Because 5 days allow friends and families who are based in overseas to come back to pay their respects. And I think that's important because funeral is the last occasion that you will be able to spend time and have space for yourself together with the beloved. Physically. So that's important. So sometimes families may think, hey, shorter weeks, it is actually less tiring, but there won't be any second occasion that you can have this opportunity to be tired anymore. So sometimes we will advise our clients, okay, if 3 days, this is what you're going to expect. 5 days, you have more time. Which one do you prefer? And we let the clients or families to make their own decisions. I think that's important. So funeral director doesn't make decisions for the families. It has to be the family to make it for themselves. And what we do as funeral directors is to present options, alternatives, and tell them what the do's and no's in terms of legal-wise.
What are some of the no-goes legally?
Okay, so for instance, there are some families who say that, oh, can I bring the cremated remains of my loved ones placed in the urn and bring it back home and store it at home? The answer is a yes.
Okay.
There is nothing legally that says no to that.
Right.
So for instance, can I scatter the cremated remains at botanic gardens? And the answer is a no.
All right.
Yeah, because there are land zonings meant for that purpose for inland ash scattering. So these are the do's and the don'ts.
Okay. And the funeral directors will be able to walk them through
Yes, exactly.
all these laws.
And this will come through the conversations that you have with the families. So sometimes families are very shy. They just want to ask, can you do this? How much is it? But there's more to it. There's no two weddings are the same. No two funerals are the same as well.
Yeah.
So it all goes back to the nitty-gritty, what is important, and more importantly, what is meaningful and help them through the grieving process.
Are there any other trends that you are noticing in your line of work, in your business, about what kind of funerals or what people want from their funerals nowadays?
I think now there's more personalization. For instance, some of the families will say that my mother loves flowers that are in yellow in color. Can we have that more? I say yes, certainly. We do have a music playlist. This music playlist cannot be played during the day 1 to day 4.
Okay.
We only want to play it only on the day 5.
Right.
And we also have families who say that I only have one this song, this particular song. Some of that is a Hokkien song called Ai Pia Xia Yi Ya.
Okay.
And we will make that happen during the funeral or even a hearse procession.
Right.
So I think that's important, or how the family can remember their loved one. It is a journey that we walk together with them.
Indeed. Now, what happens when customers are not satisfied with the services rendered by a funeral company? Can they get a refund? Can they renegotiate terms? What happens in that case?
I would always say that families have to make a very good call on how you choose a funeral director. Choose someone who is reputable. choose someone who is also from our part of our association. That's important. I'm also saying that there are also many other funeral companies who are not part of our association. They are also doing good work as well. So take the time to do the evaluation, do the planning in advance and not during when the death has already occurred.
Yeah.
Because the family will not have the time, space, or even the mood to do one. So do it in advance. The best way to do funeral planning is when we are healthy and our mentally are still sound.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm able to express, if I'm the person who do the pre-plan for myself, I'm able to express my wishes. And my wishes change every 3 to 5 years, and this is where I need to speak to my preferred funeral director. I need to update you. This is what something in the family has changed. I will change my wishes. Can you do that for me? And it's always building a relationship with your funeral director. I think that's very important. It's not to the point when I've passed on. I have no way to have my wishes carried out.
And I think that's important as well because it is a very personal and intimate thing, funerals, right? Life and death is a very intimate thing. So having the right person oversee everything to your wishes, I think is a very important thing. Would you have any last pieces of advice, that quick pitch for why we should perhaps think about planning our funerals early?
As a funeral director, I've served thousands of families. So what I do notice whereby when the loved one actually shared the wishes and when the living that's left behind carry out the wishes, you can see that immense satisfaction and also, I've done what my mama wants, I've done what my papa wants, and that truly is important for them. As compared to when they have completed the funeral and they ask themselves, did I do the right thing? Did I do what my mother wants? I have one story whereby this gentleman who came to me, and the mother, when she was alive, she wanted to share with her son how she wanted to be remembered during the funeral. And of course, the son said, Mama, you will not die. You will not die. You will not die so soon. Don't tell me this. In Canada, it's called tai ka lai si, don't say this inauspicious words and all sorts. And when she passed on, he came to me and said, Mr. Ang, I just want everything top notch. And I told him, maybe item number 1 to 26 is what you need. 27 to 35 is not necessarily you need. And what happens after the funeral is completed? He came to me every Sunday. He asked me, Mr. Ang, my mom always wanted to tell me what she wants for her funeral. I brush her away. I do not know if I do the right thing. I do not know whether what I did was what my mother wants. And for every Sunday, he came to me for almost 6 months. And that's the guilt that he have. So I think that the power of sharing within a family is so important. That can be rewind. It will make so much a different experience for him. So I think it's important when your elderly want to share that story, how he or she want to be remembered, please listen to them. And also, if you do have something to share it. And always rope in your preferred funeral director to sit in a family conversation, and that really helps. Sometimes when it's not about what he or she says, it's what he or she meant through the words.
The real message behind
the words. And we as funeral directors, we are able to see from the tone, the choice of words, the body language, and we'll be able to, this is what she meant. This is what he means.
So it's one thing to share and have that conversation with your family members and the funeral directors. It's also equally important to listen. That's the big lesson from this story. Ziqian, this has been a really important conversation to have. We're so glad we were able to get you on this. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Andrea.
And to you listening or watching, I hope this conversation has been a meaningful one for you. It has been for me. We welcome questions or comments, so send them away to the Money Talks team. More episodes of Money Talks can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as well. Credits to the team, Crispina, Robert, Tiffany Ang, Junaini Johari. We are also looking at Joanne Chan, Hanida Amin, and Saya Wint. I'm Andrea Heng. This has been the Money Talks podcast.